My name is Oisin Lunny. I'm MC for this afternoon. I'm Chief Evangelist at a company called Open Market, and we help some of the world's largest brands connect with their customers in the moments when it counts by using empathetic interactions. I'm actually moving to Spain in a few weeks, so very happy to connect with everyone here. Please find me on LinkedIn if you can spell my difficult Irish name, or come and say hi afterwards. Anyway, yesterday and today, one of the big themes that we've had at the conference has been the disruption of technology in very well-established verticals and very well-established industries. And a lot of this disruption is happening around the customer experience, or the CX. And no more so than especially in healthcare. So we're seeing that healthcare providers are maybe changing the way they look at patients and looking at them as customers, because it's a truism in the world of industry today that you don't just compete on the best customer experience in your vertical, you're competing against the best customer experience that any of your users have with any company, and usually on their mobile device. So I'm really excited to introduce the next session. It's about a very, very important topic. It's all about how new models of innovation can make the healthcare system more accessible. And we have a world-class panel of speakers lined up for you today. So please welcome, who's going to introduce all of his speakers, is Mr. Todd Morrow from NHI Corp Programme. And please give a big round of applause to all of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So what we're going to take you through over the next 20 to 30 minutes is just a little bit of an overview of what the panel members see as innovations that are beginning to change access to healthcare, as the title suggests. So I thought what we'd do is we'll introduce ourselves first. I'm going to ask each of the panel members to do that. I'll kick it off, and then I'll ask each to do it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about accessibility. What does accessibility mean? Because I think what you'll find is that depending on your position in the ecosystem, and we've got several different representatives here, which is great, the accessibility means something slightly different. And we'll take it there to some specifics of some of the things we see. So my name is Todd Morrow. I'm visiting from California. I'm at UC Berkeley, where I work for the National Institutes of Health. That's the NIH up on the slide. And the National Science Foundation, essentially training professors of engineering and science and physicians on how to be more innovative and entrepreneurship. And I spend about half my time working with large corporations as well, doing similar sorts of innovation programs inside. Historically, I'm from the biomed industry, and I have had 4 startups, one of which we were happy with, one of which we don't know yet, 2 of which we were not so happy with. So sort of a typical startup record there. But I'd like to turn it over to Eduardo for an introduction, to introduce himself.
I'm Eduardo Díaz. I work for Madrid Más D Foundation. It's a foundation of the regional government of Madrid. I'm head of unit of the entrepreneurship unit, so we are helping entrepreneurs with science and technology-based projects to go ahead. We have different programs, a business angel network, investors, also mentoring network, and some programs in the space, health sectors. So I'm very pleased to stay here with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Stefano Molin. I'm very pleased to be here. I work for Innoges Capital. We are a venture capital firm that started a few years ago, making investment into seed early stage company in 2 main areas. One is everything related to healthcare and medical devices, and the other one is digital, which is a very open definition. So we invest in different sectors. We tend to invest in companies either in Italy or in Southern Europe and support those companies to really expand international. We have offices in Milan, Geneva, and San Francisco.
Awesome.
Great.
Paz, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Paz Alvarado. I work for Merck, the German Merck. I'm leading the digital innovation agenda for the Spanish franchise. A few words about Merck. Probably all of you know that we are a global company, science and technology company, developing solutions in the areas of healthcare, life science, and performance materials. But I'm not sure how many of you know that we are 350 years old. So that's quite a success, I guess. And behind that success, what we have is a big curiosity, and I would say also a long-term commitment to really improve the standard of life of our society.
Hello, I'm Frederic Jordax. I used to be a doctor, and 10 years, yeah, that's what I was. Now I don't know what I am. Let's say entrepreneur. 10 years ago, we started with 2 colleagues a company, something that's now a company called Doctoralia, where that it's a place, it's a marketplace where patients can find the right doctor and the time they want with the characteristics they want. So we try to help patients to reach doctors, and on the other side, we try to help doctors to also to get more patients in their private offices. That means that we merged 2 years ago with a Polish company that did more or less the same, Doc Planner, and now we as a group, last year we managed near 400 million unique users and about more than 9 million online appointments. That is more or less the size of Estonian market. Okay, so not bad. I think that probably we have succeeded on that. Our main areas or main markets are Latin America, because of the language, but also Eastern Europe and Italy, by the way.
So, Frederick, how do you think, it sounds like that your main focus is accessibility, that is, you're really providing, so tell us a little bit about that. How is accessibility appeal to your customers? Well, why do they want it?
No, they ask, the point is making things, everybody talks about this patient-centric theory that now everybody's on that. But the point is that we try to help the patient to choose by themselves going to the doctor. In the past, doctors were the ones that really gave access to medical offices, and this was what that means. That means that there were delays, that people waiting for things. Now there is a global trend. So if you don't want to ask to wait for a taxi, why should you wait for going to a doctor? No? And it's about that. And most of the technologies we have seen and you were hearing yesterday and all these days and that are around are based on that, on trying to, in my opinion, trying to increase accessibility, that is getting the best care you can get as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Stefano, accessibility.
Yeah.
When you think about accessibility within healthcare, what does it mean to you?
Well, of course, accessibility have many different meanings. For us, one of the interesting points is that it's really linked with the possibility to create a better diagnosis and better anticipate some diseases when they are coming. And so it really empower the patient to really control their own health and those reducing also the overall cost of the healthcare system. So, for example, one of the companies that we invested is a company that actually came from research from the MIT, which was totally different because it was related to the area of affective computing, which is the area of technology that is labeled, that allows software to recognize your own emotion when you see some content. And then they used this technology and they developed some machine learning artificial intelligence tool to create a wearable that is able to detect and anticipate when an epilepsy attack is coming. So the idea is that, okay, I have the wearable and I can measure some specific parameters, but also I have all the technology that can really allow the patient to see if the next attack will come, and then of course increase a lot the efficiency and the possibility for the patient to control what is going on. So we think this is something that is really interesting. So is of course the accessibility of data, but also the possibility to give more power to the user to really create a better relationship with the care system. So
in that specific case, do you see beneficiaries besides the epileptic himself?
Yeah, of course, because then you make the overall system more efficient. So if you create more efficiency, then of course you can create the healthcare system able to solve the issue of many more patients, and so then you reduce the cost and you are able to improve the overall healthcare system efficiency.
So there's societal benefits in addition to the specific personal benefit that the user might use. Okay. Path, from your position, how do you see accessibility within Merck? And can you relate it to what we just heard from the other two panelists?
I would say that for us, accessibility is meeting the evolving needs of patients. I think today, and probably we all agree, that due to the longevity rates and the birth rate, we are facing an aging population and many people with long-term conditions and probably complex health needs. So we have huge challenge in terms of high-quality access and cost, no? But I guess the answer is technology and innovation. No? We have two approaches. The first one is integrate the technology to look for efficiency. do things that we do today in a best way. But I would say that we need to move forward and we need to look for, to change the model, no? We need to start putting really the patient, the people in the center, and instead of curing, this is what we do today, we have to generate health. So I would say that we can generate value, generating health through prevention and diagnosis.
Okay, great. So Eduardo, you're sort of on the ground here in Madrid working with startups. Do you see an interest from your startup population in increasing accessibility to healthcare? Is that sort of the focus of some of your companies?
We work a lot not only with startups but also with the innovation sources of these technologies. So we work a lot with hospitals, for example, with the health institutions. And what we find is that the potential of this the health system as a total is enormous. It's comparable, in fact, to the potential of universities in terms of developing accessible systems and accessible products. When I say it's the potential, I mean in terms of giving to the society or sustainability of the system itself. I would like to mention, for example, that something that is the stats, the database of statistics on technology transfer, it's international. You will find that this potential is really similar in universities. The main difference is that what we find in universities, in hospitals or in health systems, is that all these, the collaborations, for example, between the professionals from hospitals, professionals from normally take place within the hospital or with other companies, and much less with, let's say, with ICT professionals or with other universities. So normally these innovations, these accessibility innovations, normally don't go beyond the center itself themselves. Just to mention, because you said what's accessibility for you, I would like to mention one example. For me, accessibility has a big relationship with personalized healthcare. And I would like to mention, we have many cases in Madrid+D, but last week I was in a company we specialize in artificial intelligence and also in natural language processing, which has a very, really incredible system to read electronic records and to read the history of patients and help the health professionals to take much more personalized decisions. So it's really incredible, the future, that's ahead.
So, Stefano, you must see a lot of companies coming through looking for investment, and you're aware of what's going on in the market. What do you see as some of the emerging technologies that will further increase access?
Well, I think that, of course, there is a lot going on with everything that is related to the data, to the accessibility of data and how we manage those data. And from our perspective, we think that there are some aspects that are not developed and taken in the right spot yet. One is the fact that, we need to make those data really secure. This is something that, of course, is relevant for any kind of artificial intelligence or data application, but I think it's particularly relevant when we deal about health. No? So all that is related to make those solutions not just more accessible, but also more secure in terms of how we manage those data, I think this is something that could be really interesting and relevant in the future. And related to that also, if you think about it, everything that is somehow related to healthcare has a regulatory implication. No? So we have to think about, we are not just talking about consumer business. There is a lot of implication how we use those technology and artificial intelligence in terms of their regulatory implications. So the more we are able to create framework that are working, the better will be for the future of the solutions.
So just picking on the topic of data security, which is obviously, as you said, a big deal, well, in everything, but in healthcare specifically. Is this something that you, for example, Dr. Lade, Frederick, that you see as an issue that you guys have to grapple with? And presumably for Merck it's the same thing. Can you guys comment at all on what you see as the...
Well, the security, we are at least in Europe, we are working with a very restrictive environment in terms of security of the data. That means that the regulator doesn't really understand what can be done with data. So even public initiatives here in Spain or in England have been pushed for the left-wing parties to be removed because of that, because they really don't understand how good could be to use this data in a more open way. So in my point of view, that maybe we are taking we are maybe carrying too much the data, and we should open it more to investigators, to companies, in order to try to do things. I always talk about the first big success of big data. That was when Pfizer had to retire a painkiller because in Kaiser Permanente realized with 1 million of medical files that there was a high number of deaths by heart problems.
Vioxx or Bexar, whichever one it was.
The Vioxx case. That was very relevant, but it was in 25, I guess, and I mean 10 years ago. And since then, we should have learned a lot about all the things that are happening with drugs or even with interactions that really we have no idea, and they are in the medical records that already exist.
So having a more open data pool would allow people to pull out these correlations earlier, is sort of your point.
Absolutely.
And presumably that would apply to better diagnostics and to a whole bunch of other things as well. Okay, fair enough. Paf?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, data is key. Without data, we cannot move forward. And like in any other aspect of innovation, regulation needs to adapt to the needs, no? I think we really need to understand how we are going to use the data. We need to tell people what is the reason and let them decide if they wanted to provide the data to keep improving. So for me, it's a matter of transparency and letting the people know how to use it and given different levels of usage of the data.
So you're suggesting transparency, transparency at the personal level. I decide I'm okay sharing my data.
Yeah.
Great. So does anyone want to talk a little bit about, so when people talk about data security, usually they're talking about locking it, not opening it.
Yeah.
So I think this is great. I mean, so we're talking about opening it, and I certainly understand the point. The counter argument, of course, is it's scary, you can find out things about me that I don't want you to, et cetera, et cetera. Any thoughts about how that would resonate within your particular ecosystem? The trade-offs there?
Well, I mean, about the trade-off, I mean, as she mentioned, it has to be a personal choice. Yeah. And I'm sure that if you are a very sick person with a chronic disease or a probably lethal disease, you would give your data and whatever you want. Okay, so just in order to have the chance to be lucky and to find a solution, or even in worst scenario, at least giving the opportunity to the people of the future to solve this problem. So I think that this should be a more individual choice. That maybe we have lost in Europe this path of individualism, and it's something that we should keep better.
Okay. Okay. So remember that my job sitting up here is not to say anything, it's to get them to say things, right? And it's also keep you awake. Okay, so hold on for a minute. I'm going to say something that's going to irritate probably all four of them. Let's see where it goes. All right. So there's an example in the United States where through health records, the police were able to identify a criminal not because they had access to his health data, but because they had access to his family's health data. And they were able to therefore figure out who he was. And I can give you the specifics, I don't remember offhand. And it was something fairly serious, it was murder or something like that. And they tracked him down. So that's an example, I will suggest, of where my decision to open my health data affects my brother, or my sister, or my children, or my grandchildren. Any thoughts on that? I love the idea of personal choice. I think it's a great idea. What do you do to limit damage to other people? Eduardo, please go ahead.
Well, that type of situation is very, very common. We find them when we support entrepreneurs. For me, entrepreneurship, going back to the first question, is probably the most interesting. Probably it's my profession and my passion, but it's probably the best way to bring innovations into the market. So the entrepreneurs that we support many times find this type of situations, and probably it's one of the main things why they don't go ahead, because they haven't thought enough about what's going to happen, what's going to think the population, the people, the users about my product in terms of confidentiality and all these things. So it's something that we take into account a lot in a program that we have. It's called Health Start Madrid+D. We support projects from the hospitals and from their health system to them to find other professionals in technologists, also in the hospitals and the entrepreneurs, and they bring together the ideas. So they together, they can really find this type of the solution to this type of situations. But if they are alone, if it's just something from the clinical world, from the medical world, probably they don't know much, they don't think enough, they don't have the solution. And well, that's why we think that multidisciplinarity is essential to bring these businesses to the market.
So the problem I raise, you say it's just another problem to be solved by a smart startup.
Yeah, I think so. I think that at the end of the day, like that, we have no...
Listen, I'm open to the idea. I'm not believing yet, but I'm open to the idea. Please,
no,
go ahead,
I think that at the end of the day, we need to empower people to take their own decision on their data, on what they want their data to be used. So I agree. I think that, and we are seeing this in many different kind of applications, even in business that are coming from a totally different field, on the consumer business, in which those information, those data can really help the people to have a better life. And so at the end of the day, if you are totally transparent in the way you use those information, is the only possible solution. And then, of course, you need to find a balance on accessibility of data and information, how those information be used from other players.
But you mentioned something interesting, no? Because you have just already said that, okay, there is a problem that needs to be solved by a startup. I'm not sure if I agree 100%. I think there is different agents, and we need to collaborate. And let's bring this topic to this conversation, because I think collaboration is the key element that we are all missing. There is a lot of initiative right now that has proven to make a difference. But we haven't seen any change in the sector, being completely honest. So I think it's the time I mean, the challenge we have is closing the gap between what we know and what we need to do. And that's, for me, the key thing that we need to talk, how we can get together, work, find a way to some efforts to really change the situation that we have today.
So make sure I understand.
I love that you mentioned that, because as the entrepreneur...
Please.
Me too. I
as the entrepreneur here, okay, I'm the one that I'm knocking doors. I have been knocking doors of pharma companies, insurance companies, for the last, maybe I would say, 7 years. Okay, and I'm still waiting in most of cases. Okay, I mean, 90. Okay, next week. Let's talk next week. But the point is that it's not very easy going with a very revolutionary solution, being Mr. Nobody, and then is when you need people like okay, a public institution just covering you, or maybe trying to get involved with a big pharma or with a big insurance company and around. But the point is that even these big companies or these big infrastructures are not ready for being innovative. And for me, this is the point. So nobody wants to be the first one. Everybody wants to be, okay, in the top 10, but nobody wants to be the first one or the second or the third one, because then is when the first one is the one that eats the small cake, but all the problems. Okay, the problems that are, as you mentioned, the data, the lawyers, because the only one that's really stopping everything is the lawyer on board. The one saying no, because they take care of everything, but this will never happen. Yes, but there is a possibility, and must say no. Okay? And then when investors ask to the lawyer, and then when you don't get the money because of the risk. And so, and then it's about that. So, and you as an entrepreneur, you just are just walking around in circles, hearing these songs about, hey, we should be innovative, and we should do things, and we should do partnerships, and then you wait, where's the door? Okay? And for me, this is the point.
I told you I love talking. No, but I was going to say you, for instance, we have an innovation office here in Spain. I mean, through our CEO in Spain, Marieta Jimenez.
It's not personal, it's not personal.
No, I know, but I'm saying, listen, we have an initiative right now here in Spain. Yeah. It was born at the beginning of this year, and what we do is we...
Tell them, because...
Create value, because, again, we create economic value, because we are a company, but addressing the challenges that we have with the sector. So we are looking for ideas. Of course, we work across the organization with business hypotheses, but then we work with in collaboration with partners to try to define a prototype that we can test and to see if it makes sense and we can scale the idea. So again, we are a big pharma, and we are putting resources to go beyond that we normally do the pharmas, which is improve with big data the pharma and the drugs. But today we have a good example of here I'm here. I'm having this innovation office. Call me because
and
we
I'm
can
very
do
glad that you're here.
Yeah. So we can do things together. Okay.
Pharma is coming. Come on.
Yes, I would like. I don't know if you are. Yeah. Yes. I would like to say something. I don't know if it's the best place to say this because we are at the South Summit, entrepreneurship everywhere. But I would like to say something that I sometimes say, not so publicly, but it's that we have so many initiatives in the promoting entrepreneurship. It's really incredible how we have evolved and improved. But if you look at the thinking of your contribution, if you look at all of them together, many times from public institutions like us, we see that all of them together are not answering to many of the main questions that we need to solve, because probably many of our corporations or programs are looking inside, are looking for the best projects to come to my program, and are not cooperating. So I think cooperation is a very good issue to bring to this this roundtable. For us, in the health sector, it's essential to cooperate with the origin of these innovations, either technology-based firms, but also patents or clinical trials or observational studies, which are hospitals, mainly hospitals. So we are working a lot with ITEMAS. ITEMAS is the national network of innovation units at the hospitals. They are really incredible at identifying the best technologies in the hospitals. But we are also working with big companies that are providing services, some banks, and also our business angel network also. So I think that the role of public institutions in this case is really to try to do this that private institutions are not doing by themselves.
And do you see that as bridging between the small and large private institutions, or it's a completely separate function?
Yes, we bring all of them together to the same, and we select the best project with the most innovative and entrepreneurial potential, and then we give them support with training, mentoring, and also with some other services, some travel grants, and some others, some budget for developing prototypes, so that altogether the most mature teams and startups at the end, because we have the creation of 3 startups more or less every year, then they can go to our business angel network and to other investors that could also be participating in this competition.
If I can ask for something, yes, I wish you could go and find the problems and then ask the startups or the entrepreneurs to come to see if they can solve them. Because then it's easier than, okay, I've got a startup and I put the label, a public label, and let's find an investor or not, and it depends on the results. So looking for solutions is much better than looking for big figures, in my opinion. Okay, so it's not about we have hundreds of startups, we have solved 10 solutions globally, so, or even only one solution having a global impact. It has to be good for everybody.
Yes. Okay. I mentioned 3 startups per year because it's the final result, it's the creation of the startup. But we support 12 innovative projects every year, and many of them evolve in different ways, are not creating startups, but are doing other types of technology transfer. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I tend to agree to your point that I think if we are able to work in a more closer way with corporates and really understand the needs of the corporate, I think it's a better way to create those links that are stronger, because one of the things is true that on one side maybe corporate is difficult to deal with startups, but it's also true that startups are not prepared yet to deal with corporates. No? So I think part of our job is really also to help them. So if we are able to get this feedback and this input and help those companies to be prepared to dialogue in the right way with the corporate, that will be much more efficient.
Just adding to what you were saying, I think that the key piece is make sure that we have a common goal. And this is something that most of the time is not working, no? Because you think you have a common goal, you think you have the purpose to solve, and you start working together, but you end up in different places. So my suggestion is, before you start doing anything, even start talking about technology, which for me is another problem. We talk about technology. Let's talk about the purpose. Let's make sure that we have a common goal, and there is trust. because innovating needs trust. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so we're out of time, so let me just wrap it up with sort of a thought, and then
Yeah.
we'll take it from there. So you've heard sort of a diversity of opinions around some of the innovations that are driving accessibility in healthcare. And I think one of the themes that's come out pretty strongly is there needs to be perhaps more communication between sectors of the ecosystem. So you've got the startup world, you've got the investor world, which has sort of got its foot in the startup world, you've got the public world, which is trying to help the startup world, but then you've got the large companies who ultimately are going to be the recipient of a lot of this technology. I mean, some of the startups will become big, of course, but on average, and maybe those sectors need to work together better. Now, let me leave you with a more difficult thought. So, as we say in English, charity starts at home. So, what are the four of you going to do about trying to make that happen? Fortunately, we're out of time.
No. What do we want to do? What we will do, or what we want to do?
What we're going to do.
What I'm going to do with that? Well, I'm as myself, as an individual, I'm investing in companies. I'm creating startups. So
And very quickly, I'm sorry, because we're out of time.
No, I was going to. Sorry?
You're starting companies, you're being a startup.
Yeah.
What else? How are you going to work with these guys?
No, I will offer them my companies and all my products and all my services, trying to adapt. So at the end of the day, is as she said, so is matching and is understanding the needs and what we have and what should we have to match, and having as many help we have with that, better for everybody.
Okay. Anyone else want to throw something in the time we don't have?
Just to make an example, we are investing in specific vertical program to work with corporates in some area that we are looking at, and this is maybe something that goes beyond what is our normal job, that is investing in startup, because we really think that if we are able to bring those competences and align with the goal and the objectives, then we will be much more efficient. For us, there is a value because we will do better investments, and at the end of the day, we will end up with taking the best of the knowledge of each of us to support innovations.
Okay, good. Thank you. Collaboration always sounds good. It's hard to pull off. We're out of time. Thank you very much. Let's thank the panelists.